Hi, my name is Yana. I'm a modern ajumma, and one of my absolute favorite things to do is to read a book while having a fragrance on my wrist. And I'm kind of nearsighted, and so I tend to hold my book fairly close to me, and so I will smell the fragrance on my wrist as I'm reading a book, and so my mind is racing with thoughts about the book as well as thoughts on like what I'm smelling, and it is just one of the best small pleasures that we can have in life as far as I'm concerned. I read books as if there's no tomorrow. I also collect perfume. I enjoy beauty, and so it has been particularly thrilling for me to see this marriage between book and fragrance lovers. And to me, that just makes so much sense because if you're a bookish person, you obviously have a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions, a lot of ideas, and are probably more want to prefer overstimulation of any sort. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about some of my go-to summer fragrances and go-to summer books. Not gonna lie, another reason why I was desperate to make this video is because there has been a perfume that has been long since discontinued called Viktor and Rolf Salty Flower. This perfume was not even that big of a perfume. Perhaps it could be labeled as like a cult favorite, not even like a cult classic. It was part of a range of like magic spells, something from Viktor and Rolf. When I first smelled it back in the 2010s, smelled like nothing I've ever smelled in my life. I mean, I was in my early middle 20s, so it was when I was like burgeoning in my adult selfhood. But Salty Flower smelled so unique, so beautiful to me. It was sunny, it was salty obviously, but it was floral, it was fresh and livening, but it wasn't too salty, it wasn't too pretty, it wasn't too sweet. And to me, it just smelled so perfect. But because I was in my young days, I couldn't afford to buy a full bottle for myself. And you know, everything in your 20s seems permanent. And so I just didn't really think about it. And then it was discontinued. And now that has become the perfume that continues to haunt my days, especially during the summertime. And trolling through Fragrantica, another thing that I love to do is read Fragrantica reviews of both new perfumes and old perfumes written by people like myself who just hold on to the dear memories of the beloved perfumes long gone by. And there's a part of Fragrantica where people can vote other perfumes that smell like the perfume that you're reading about. I feel like each house has like their signature base layer that either you can get on board with or you don't. Like they have their signature about their house scents. The Dior perfumes, both like the normal ranges like Miss Dior and J'adore, and then like these special editions that they have that are like just more expensive and for whatever reason they claim are fancier. I still can't quite articulate what it is that I don't get along with, but when I smelled Eden Rock, like I guess overall, if I had to put it anyway, all of them, to my nose, smell like faint traces of that oily uncle of yours who you always try to avoid, and just I've always been turned off by it. So even though I own this Eden Rock sample, I never even bothered to smell it until the Salty Flower comparison. Another comparison that was made to Salty Flower is the Maison Margiela Beach Walk, which is a hugely popular fragrance, and I have multiple samples of Beach Walk as well. So one day I just sprayed Eden Rock, Beach Walk, and Salty Flower all on my person to compare, and I do have to accede that they are similar. Not extremely match for match because fragrance making, potioning, alchemy is a science and an art of its own. Out of the three, I still prefer Salty Flower the most. But the other fun thing about perfume is that you can go on sites like Fragrantica and look up all of the different notes that your favorite perfumes might contain, and then you pick apart what about the perfume it is that you love so much, and then look for other perfumes that have the same note DNA. In my case, for Salty Flower, I realized that this limited edition bottle that I have of Jo Malone's Frangipani flower. Smells very similar to salty flower. Like all of these fragrances, Frangipani flower, beach walk, Eden rock, salty flower, they all have like that white floral, almost like a tropical, like Hawaii tropic vacation sunniness about them. And I never even thought to connect summer with salty flower in my 20s. So I was so excited to make this discovery that I just wanted to talk about it to somebody who cares. No one in my life really cares about books or perfume. So I wanted to talk about like this really beautiful solar white floral tropical without getting too coconut-y fragrance profile, and then match it up with like another kind of go-to summer book, which for this Joel Malone's Frangipani flower, I'm gonna talk about Tom Perrotta's Little Children. So for this video, just take it with a grain of salt. We're just having fun here. I'm just gonna talk about some perfumes and some books, and I will make a connection, however reaching it may be. Just for fun, just for fun. So I thought of Little Children, first of all, because it does take place during the summertime. I believe that it's set in somewhere in the Midwest or New England, but their summer is very hot and humid. It's all about suburban life and suburban culture. And I thought that a scent profile like Frangipani flower would be something that a upper middle class suburban mom would be all over, and that is indeed what I have become. So in my mind, it makes sense. The other thing that I love to think about is while I'm reading about the books, smelling whatever fragrance sample I have of the day, I think what these characters might smell like, might prefer to wear, what's part of their personality, almost like an actor trying on this character like an outfit, and imagining like all the little details in their lives that make up this character. And so I don't think that Sarah in Little Children would necessarily make Frangipani flower her entire personality, but it would be something that she would smell and feel like it's something that could seduce Todd, who is the male character in this book. I love Tom Perrotta. His writing feels so contemporary American and really classic in voice and storytelling. I love the empathy that he shows to all of the characters, both good and bad. In Little Children, the film adaptation is wonderful too. He really gets at like the summer stink of a way too tightly knit neighborhood and community. And I feel like a fragrance like Frangipani flower might help cut some of that stink. Another go-to for summer reading for me personally is manga. I have to read manga during the summertime because it just evokes my childhood nostalgia where I'm reading a manga, I'm drinking a banana milk, it's summer vacation, I'm a child, I have no responsibilities other than to finish like the latest wonderful series. And I love Yazawa. The series Nana completely changed my life when I was reading it for the first time in my 20s. Neighborhood Stories is another series of hers that I love almost just as much. While Nana is set during the protagonist's early 20s and it talks about youth and growing up and coming of age, Neighborhood Stories is set during like the high school years. Neighborhood Stories evokes the feelings that you had when, you know, you were still in high school, you're still in your teens, and the world felt like it was completely open to you. There was no ceiling to whatever you could possibly achieve. The kids in Neighborhood Stories are so wholesome, and they have a little community unto themselves where they support each other's ambitions, whatever they may be. I was a very creative child, and these are very creative kids, and so it just really hit the right register for me at the time. And so my perfume pairing for Neighborhood Stories is Simone by Tocca, which, first of all, this bottle is so cute and lovely. Oh man, I really should have done my nails before this video, huh? And it smells so elevating and so fresh and enlivening. Oh, that watermelon top note is really what just does it for me. It's so refreshing for a hot summer day. It's liable to just turn your bad day completely around and put a more positive spin to your day, just like the feeling of when you were in your teens and nothing could get you down. I love Simone. It's one of my favorites from this line. If I were to be honest, I could see like a high school student wearing this more than a almost 40-year-old woman, but you know, age is just a number and you should always just do you. The other thing that I love about perfume is that I have a fairly sizable collection, and to me, fragrance is just like clothing. You can choose to be a minimalist and have like a few standard solid pieces in your wardrobe that will just be constantly worn, and that's just who you are and what you'll look like. But that's not most people, definitely not me. And perfume to me is all about mood, what kind of mood that you want to evoke. How do you want to feel for the day? And not just like one perfume for one day either. It could be, what perfume do you want in the morning? What perfume do you want in the evening? What perfume do you want to smell at bedtime? What do you want to feel like that day? What do you want to feel like for this event? So when I reach for Simone, I want to feel refreshed. I want to feel uplifted. I want to smell that watermelon top note. Most of all, it just brings to mind youth, summer picnics or pool parties, fun, and these new editions of neighborhood stories are recently published. Like when I first read these, it was like probably illegal online when I would just like have my laptop open and be like logging onto those anime and manga sites that had English and other language translations but I'm happy to see that Yazawa is getting a lot more publishing love with this set that I highly recommend. I haven't read neighborhood stories in a few years now. The last time that I read it was online again, and so I'm really excited for reading these, like, you know, with actual eyeballs on actual paper. It would be my first time. If you love Nana and you haven't heard of neighborhood stories, I highly recommend checking it out. If you've been looking for a really refreshing watermelon note in a like soft floral perfume, definitely put your nose to Simone Tocca. Another go-to summer reading choice for me personally is Lolita by Vladmir Nabokov. And for me, it's because it's, first of all, set in the summertime. The extremely, not at all overrated, glorious prose describes the summer vibes so incredibly beautifully. I don't know who still thinks that Lolita is inappropriate, like controversial per se, because to me, and to be honest, what's the normal way that everybody should be thinking about this book is that it's all about ultimately feminism, and that women shouldn't be sexualized and contextualized in those means. The only controversial thing about it is that that's not the case, evidently. This book also talks a lot about like the monsters in our community, the upstanding men who purport themselves to be like the father figure or like the leading man of the community, but they use that identity, that power that they have for their own self-gain, specifically targeting those who are marginalized and don't have protections, such as very young women, in this case a child. I specifically try to read this book and other books like these that speak to that vein of feminism during the summertime when everyone is seeing like Cosmo periodical covers in the supermarkets and talking about like summer beach bod tips and like the very opposite in that vein of thinking. It feels so arbitrary to assign a summer perfume fragrance for Lolita, but I just chose Acne Studios by Frederic Malle, and to me, Acne Studios smells so like fresh and peachy and soft and delicate almost at first. Then it moves into this more heavier and complicated sweet. I hear a lot of people praising and hyping up Acne Studios to smell like laundry detergent or like candy, like a Jolly Rancher type of candy, which I can kind of see. But to me, this is like sweet, ripe yellow peaches that will quickly turn rancid, which is how I kind of made the connection to Lolita, where you start off with that relationship of promise of a young kid who is desperate for a father figure, thinking that she may have found one, but then before you know it, it quickly turns into something darker. I understand that it's weird to say that I love this book because of the narrative content. However, I do love this book for its subtle way of showing the reader how something that on paper looks okay quickly turns into something incredibly horrid. How easily that people can be swept away by good looks, by an articulate man. I think Acne Studios smells lovely. I appreciate that it's not just like a surface level, easy breezy, clean peach. It's got more depth to it. So that's my tenuous connection between book and fragrance. I first read A Room with a View by E.M. Forster for the first time a couple summers ago. It was my first E.M. Forster. I was so transfixed by E.M. Forster, the way that he can talk about, when is this, like 19th century British people in Italy, as if these are contemporary people. Just how relatable his voice is. The characterizations, like the whole time I just kept wanting to grab Lucy by the shoulders and tell her to get a grip, get over herself. I fell in love with Mr. Emerson for his grounding perspective on life. And ever since then, I've been wanting to read an E.M. Forster every summer and just established E.M. Forster as like a go-to summer author for me. And so a go-to summer fragrance of mine is Ilio by Diptyque. I happen to have the Luke Edward Hall limited edition illustrated bottle, which came out, I don't know, a few years ago, maybe even the same year that I read this book. And this is the illustration for the back of the bottle. Ilio is also very similar to that Salty Flower, Beach Walk, Eden Rock, Frangipani flower, but the defining difference in the trait is that top note of the prickly pear. That prickly pear is what kind of puts that like a citrusy edge to this summery, tropical white floral. And it also comes across not so much Hawaii, but more Greece, like more Mediterranean version of a holiday, which pairs perfectly with A Room with the View, since it is all about these British people having a summer vacation in Italy. Ilio for the summertime is my like dumb reach, where if it's super hot, I don't want anything complicated. I don't want to like really think about what I'm wearing. I just want to know that I'm wearing something fab and interesting, but also, you know, like pretty and approachable. This is that fragrance, and this is that book. If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin is the first novel of Baldwin's that I've read a couple years ago, and I immediately fell in love. I also love the film adaptation for this. The Nicholas Britell soundtrack is not to be missed. The story doesn't necessarily take place over like just the summertime. However, I do associate it with summertime just for the imagery of a sunny Harlem neighborhood where kids are playing in the street, you know, water is erupting out of a fire hydrant. Summer, I also find that it's not just about lighthearted, sunny tales. Summer can also have its darkness as well. For the perfume pairing, I chose Sunflower Pop by Floral Street. It is, I don't think, a limited edition. It is like not in their main line necessarily. I honestly don't know. I bought it at a gift shop. From an art museum. It was a blind buy, but I'm happy to report that it has become one of my favorite summertime perfumes. It also evokes that very dark summer mood. Like, it is uplifting because it is a solar fragrance. It is very honeyed without being too sweet, to my nose at least. And like you just immediately, even without this illustration, immediately visualize like big yellow sunflowers, you know, like within a couple of days they'll dry up in the sun and wither when it's time for autumn. Is that the way that plants work? It just smells like you're outside, whether you're in a field, you know, a la Vincent van Gogh painting like the haystacks or what have you. But to me, in my, you know, little experience of life, it makes me think of being outside on the sidewalk. Kids are playing, sun is shining. You can smell like the sweetness of soda pop in the air. You can smell like the water from sprinklers. It's just an incredibly sunny summertime fragrance for me. I read Paradais by Fernanda Melchor for the first time. This was my first ever Fernanda Melchor a couple summers ago, and it was definitely perhaps not the most appropriate book to be reading at the beach with a bunch of kids around me during a family Hawaii vacation. However, that was the context of this reading experience for me personally, and this is again another like very summery book. It's set in a very hot, humid place. But like at this point, we're talking about putrid, fetid summer. I love this book. I love Fernanda Melchor's writing. I love what she has to say with her writing. Her stories are all extremely dark. This is not at all sunny in a happy sense. This is like the sunshine shining a spotlight onto the ills and depravities of human beings. And the bottle that I chose, that I also genuinely love for the summertime, is Jour d'Hermes by Hermes. This is another like very creamy white floral. Is it like gardenia flower? It's super classy. It's on the more mature side of fragrances. Definitely amongst the ones that I've talked about thus far. There's like a rich wife character in Paradais that I would imagine her choosing a fragrance like Jour d'Hermes to wear. And to me, Jour d'Hermes is like one of those aspirational fragrances. It's one of those fragrances that make you feel better than you feel that you are. This bottle is exquisite. It is heavy as a paperweight to hold 85 mils of juice. I've had this bottle for a while and I keep feeling like it's my grown-up woman fragrance. And so I tend to reach for this when either I am already in that mood or I want to put myself in that mood. But every time I spritz this on myself, it just envelops me in this intoxicating, rich, warm, like ambery white floral, as if I'm like a boss lady. And last but definitely not least, we cannot not talk about summertime reading without talking about the Neapolitan Quartet, the summer lit fic series that everybody must read if you're into that sort of thing. It's one of those like, you can't not talk about summer without talking about summer in southern Italy. It's an epic tale. I think everybody knows what the Neapolitan Quartet is about, but it's an epic tale about female friendship, about a community, about power dynamics between generations. Elena Ferrante talks about wealth and class and power and inequalities through all of these vast characters. It is absolutely one of my favorite books of all time. And to me, my favorite summer fragrance is Fico di Amalfi by Acqua di Parma. It is a fig fragrance. However, I do find it to be one of the like sweeter, creamier figs that I have smelled, at least. Like, again, without it being too boring and too vanilla. Not like vanilla in fragrance note, but like vanilla as in dull. There's a citrus edge in Fico di Amalfi that really makes it on the zestier side, but you're also getting the greenness from like the fig leaf. Another fig fragrance that I love, not necessarily just for the summertime, but it's Philosophos by Diptyque, which I actually prefer during like rainy days, because for me, Philosophos evokes more like tree, which just happens to be a fig tree, than like figs and like summer fruits. And just out of all of the fig fragrances, Fico di Amalfi is by far my favorite. I think the bottle is another connection with Fico di Amalfi and My Brilliant Friend is that I think the bottle is fine, but it's not like beautiful. It's not lovely. And I know that tons of people have a hard time with the cover design of My Brilliant Friend. Like they think that it's tacky. While I don't necessarily agree with that, I do think that these Acqua di Parma perfume bottles look a tad old manish, and it doesn't really speak to like the character of each different fragrance within them. However, if they're worth it, which both of these are, you just gotta look past them. So to end this video, I'm just gonna quickly talk about my personal summer TBR for this summer. I have been a broken record about this Caslet Chronicles, Caslet series by Elizabeth Jane Howard, which was written during the 1990s, but it's like an epic about this one family named the Caslets in England, starting with the light years, which takes place during right in between the world wars. I knew nothing about these books. I legit, just because we're talking about Luke Edward Hall designing the Ilio bottle, I saw that he also did the cover design for the newly published series. And look how beautiful they look when they're all lined up together. So fab. I love every illustration cover. I'm trying really hard not to spoil myself with any of the plot because this is an extremely character-driven, plotty series of novels, and I just find Elizabeth Jane Howard's characterization, like her attention to detail, describing every single character and what kind of life that they inhabit, to be so magical, to be almost profound. So this summer I intend to like kick my heels and giggle while blowing through this series. I honestly feel the same way that I felt when I first read the Neapolitan novels and like when I first read Little Women as a little kid, and I have just become so excited over reading again. As I've mentioned numerous times, I am also participating in the Goodread Challenge by Ben Reads Goods, and so for the month of August, I have The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is like my last attempt at reading Kazuo Ishiguro. I've read Never Let Me Go, and I found that to be so magical, but also more boring than it's worth. And I didn't understand the hype for it, but I think more people prefer The Remains of the Day. So it's on the summer reading list. I also have A Passage to India, which is the next E.M. Forster that I want to tackle this summer. I have no idea what this is about. I'm a little bit concerned because I'm overextending my Brit-lit quota, especially just for one season. So perhaps to counterbalance that, I have on deck Slow Days, Fast Company by Eve Babbitt's. I've never read any Eve Babbitt's. What I vaguely know as like the synopsis or like the vibes for this book is that it's like a fast-paced life in Los Angeles, like I want to say in the 60s. It's like party girl fun. I don't know, but I'm also trying to read like an NYRB book, like one a month. So this will be on deck for August. I really want to try to get to The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, which I have in this lovely Virago Modern Classics hardback edition. It's another reason why I'm kind of worried about this like British women heavy summer that I've got planned for myself. But I've seen several other booktubers read this and praise this highly. I just read Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor that I also have in the same VMC series, and I just want to continue in that. And this is gonna make it so much worse, but this is Persuasion by Jane Austen, and beautiful booktuber friend Nathan gifted me this like last Christmas. I forgot the context of this Miu Miu situation for this book, but like I think he knows that I love this brand Miu Miu, and he just gave it to me. I think it says like summer something on here. I still haven't opened it because I don't want to. I just wanted to like show it and keep it like this for as long as possible until I read it. I'm still making my way through all of the Jane Austens. I've only read a few so far. I really want to get to Persuasion because I have heard that it is one of the more mature of Austen's works. It also looks super slim, like I could blow through this in one sitting perhaps. Yeah, all of this to say, I'm incredibly excited for the summer. I know that we're like at the middle of July at this point, but I live in Southern California. It doesn't really get hot until like July, August, September. That is just how I personally choose to see the summer months in the calendar year. These are the months that I want to read these like summery books and wear these summer fragrances. Thank you so much for indulging me in my wanting to talk about summer fragrances and my wanting to talk about perfumes, and for giving me a space to geek out about my Fragrantica discovery about that salty flower similarity comps. Let me know if you also love perfume, what your go-to summer perfume is, what your go-to summer books are, what you have on deck for this summer, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.